Hello and welcome to the Days of Yore. Today we'll be speaking about the Nelson Vics, the Nelson baseball team that participated in the Miramichi Valley Baseball League between 1922 and 1925. So I'll begin, as I always do, by saying that I'm not an expert, and what I'm giving you today is mostly for narrative purposes. And of course, when it comes to baseball, well, I'm probably less of an expert than I've ever been at any point in my previous episodes. But I got most of my information today from the newspapers here in the local area and a few archival photos as well, which I hope you'll be seeing as we go through. So we'll begin with a little bit of context just to, again, tell you that baseball does have a long history here in the community. In 1886, during a picnic on Beaubears Island, a baseball game was held. Also in 1892, a baseball game was held as part of a picnic at St. Patrick's Church. The Nelson team, captained by John Hayes, defeated the Chatham Head team, captained by Charles Sargent, by a score of 30-24. So we see this a lot in these early baseball games here in the area. They were very offensively minded affairs. There's huge scores that you just wouldn't see in games where, I guess, defense and pitching were much better. And we're going to see that as we go here. We're going to leave behind the 30-24 scores, the 48-30 scores, as we get into more arguably professional and less kind of pickup games. So at kind of the transition in between kind of these two types of baseball happens in about 1918. So in that year, the final year of the First World War, there is a baseball team here in the community, but this time it's known as the Nelson Vics. Now the Vics take their name from the HMS Victory, the flagship of Admiral Lord Horatio Nelson, from whom Nelson, the community, takes its name. Local legend also states that the spars for the Victory came from Beaubears Island. Now I don't know if that's a true story or not, but if it isn't a true story, it should be. It's a good story. So this team was comprised mostly of workers, many number of the 5 mills that were in operation here in the community of Nelson. Now they played most of their games on Beaubears Island. They would also practice there after their shifts were over. And it's said that at the end of that year, at the end of that season, 1918, they were crowned the provincial senior men's champions. And apparently the game was played on Beaubears Island. So my grandfather, Stephen McCarthy, told me that the river was just black with boats going over there to see those games at that time. He would have been 6 years old in 1918. So it gives you an idea what kind of a spectator sport this was. Unfortunately, we don't see a lot of newspaper coverage of this season. We see one game where Nelson defeated Chatham, but we don't see a lot of coverage. We do have one picture of the team, and they're apparently on Beaubears Island when this picture was taken. But again, not a lot of newspaper coverage of that season. Now this all changes in 1922. In 1922, the Miramichi Valley Baseball League gets started, and it's a 4-team league: Nelson, Chatham, Newcastle, and Logieville. And that first season, things kind of get off to a rocky start. Bobby McCombs manages the team here in Nelson. I have to take a sidebar here for just a second. When I'm looking at some of the games here, there's some great names. For instance, Muggsy McGrath manages the Newcastle team. I mean, that's a real manager's name, I think. I mean, Bobby McCombs is a great manager's name too, but that's it, Muggsy McGrath. I mean, yeah, quite the thing. Anyway, that's a little sidebar on my part. But yeah, they get off to kind of a rocky start. They finish in 3rd place at the end of that season. They're accused of trying to be kind of a tricky team in some of their opening games. Probably their most notable game is a 3-1 loss to Newcastle, where it was said that they showed a lot of initiative, but you just couldn't quite close the deal against a tough Newcastle team. 1924, so 2 years later, everything kind of turns around. The league has just put in some restrictions on the size of the teams. This means that there are players that are cast off because, of course, rosters are tighter, and it allows Nelson to pick up a player by the name of Briggs. And Briggs he actually lives in Newcastle, but gets picked up onto the Nelson team. And he's a great asset to the team. He's a great offensive player, and he's a great pitcher. So he and Bert Coughlin from here in the community alternate as pitchers for the Nelson Vics, and they do really well that year. One of the best games of the season was played against Newcastle, where they gave up a home run on the first hit, but were able to hang on and win 2-1 against Newcastle in one of the final games of that season. Unfortunately, a tie, a game against Logieville earlier in the season, meant that Nelson finished 1 point out of first place. And in those days, the league champions would go on to vie for the provincial title. So there wasn't a playoffs, there wasn't a kind of a championship game. It was just the rankings at the end of the season determined who got to go on and vie for the provincial title. So they were 1 point shy, but they had a great team, and when they came back in 1925, they were poised to avenge that loss. And however, things would not go their way. In 1925, would prove to be the last season for the Nelson Vics in the Miramichi Valley Baseball League. This all came about on the 29th of June in a game against Chatham. So after 4 1/2 complete innings, so now in the bottom of the 5th, the game is called on account of darkness. Now the 5th inning was almost over. Apparently Briggs was 1 pitch away from striking out the Chatham batter and finishing 5 complete innings. At this point, Nelson was ahead 8-5. Now controversy was pretty rife at this time. Newspaper columnists seemed to believe that the game had been stolen from Nelson. They believed that had the 5th inning been completed, it seemed that maybe the game could have been closed with 5 complete innings. I'm not entirely sure, but that seemed to be the impression that I got reading those articles. Controversy continued when it seemed there was some debate over whether or not the game would be started over completely or would be continued from the bottom of the 5th inning on. This controversy eventually led to Nelson lodging a protest and leaving the league, never to return. So I guess Nelson's exit from baseball led eventually by the 1930s to the adoption of softball. And of course, softball would become a huge sport here in Nelson for many years thereafter. That, of course, is a story for another day. So I think we'll leave it there. So the Nelson Vics, a very competitive team, but a team that unfortunately saw a little bit of controversy and had to exit the Miramichi Valley Baseball League. So with that, we'll close. We hope to see you again in 2 weeks' time. Be sure to join my colleague Ken Walker next week for The Living Island. And again, this, of course, is a product of this channel, and if you are interested in supporting us, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and if you're able, visiting our Patreon page for more sponsorship options. We very much appreciate it. So that wraps it up for today. For the Days of Yore, I'm Dr. Sean McCarthy. Thanks so much.